Sadhguru reaction time. He says, this is a really, really important line. I want you to hopefully it shouldn't be the language of our talk. That's the point. You disagree with what I've said or what Sadhguru has shared, I don't care because
On the last day.
Last day. Present practice. What's conscious? This is Vish, and today I'll be responding to Sadhguru's video on how to overcome past sexual trauma. My name is YOGI Vish, and I love all things wisdom, meditation, and yoga based, and have been doing this stuff and getting into the spiritual journey for about 4 years now, and super grateful for it. And before we start, would love to hear what you think about this video and the topic of whether it's possible to overcome these things or not possible. You can comment that down below. With that, let's get straight into the video.
If something terrible happens to you, you should never ever forget it, because if you forget it, you may walk into it again. This is basically because we have not taught our children and the people in the world how to employ our faculties. Then everything hurts.
I love the snippet so far, really just spot on facts.
My
right
next
here.
question to you, Sadhguru, is when something bad happens to somebody and we know that it's always on their conscience, they're thinking about it a lot of times, but eventually there comes a point where they are ready to let it go. They don't want to let the past go because they feel guilty of letting it go. So why does that happen, and how do we let go of that guilt? Like, even if we take, for instance, sexual abuse, if a girl is sexually abused and eventually if she reaches a point where she is ready to overcome it, but she feels guilty to let it go because it has troubled her for a very, very long time.
This is a great
and
question.
not just her,
Super
the ones
curious
around her
about
as well.
what Sadhguru's
So
gonna
is
say.
it right to let it go at that point, or like how does one deal with a situation like this?
See, I think this struggle is coming from a misunderstanding that something either unpleasant or terrible that one may encounter in one's life, it can just happen to anybody in so many different ways. If it happens, people think they must forget it. No, you should never forget it. If something terrible happens to you, you should never ever forget it, because if you forget it, you may walk into it again. But we must know the distinction between what is memory and what is living. You are living. Memory is a dead memory, you're supposed to use it as wisdom to see such things don't happen to you in your life. But it's a fact that for most people, what happened 10 years ago, they still suffer. What may happen day after tomorrow, they already suffer. Yes or no? What happened 10 years ago or even 10 days ago does not exist right now, does it? Does it? No. What may happen day after tomorrow does not exist right now, does it? No. So you're suffering essentially something that does not exist. How many of you are psychology students, huh? Is there a medical term for those people who are suffering something that does not exist? No, don't tell them please, they'll suffer that. If you are suffering something that does not exist, on some level it means insanity, isn't it? This may sound very cruel to you right now when I say this.
That's an interesting perspective. I don't know. If you're suffering something that does not exist, is that insanity? If that's the case, I feel like a lot of us are insane then, right? Because we all tend to live in the past or live in the future, and does that mean that most of us are insane? I don't know. Comment down below, actually. Would love to hear what you think about what he's saying so far. Definitely interesting points. Definitely want to watch more to find out exactly what he's saying. But before we continue, comment down whether you agree or disagree so far. Would love to hear and discuss. Let's continue.
Because, oh, I got my pains. See, you're carrying your pains like badge, don't do that. When something bad happens to us, when something hurts us, we can either become wise or wounded. This is a choice we have. Either we can become wise with it or we can become wounded with it. As we already went through this, life is just a certain amount of time. It's ticking away. As you sit here now, you're 1 hour closer to the grave since you came here. Yes or no? Yes, it is. It's going away for all of us. So in this, where is the time to carry every experience like a wound? No. This must become your wisdom. If terrible things happen to you, you must become wiser than others, sooner than others, isn't it? But unfortunately, most people choose to become wounded simply because, again, in our systems of education, we have done nothing about the nature of human mind. We are busy studying frogs and cockroaches and trees and chemistry and physics and planets and everything. No attention to the nature of this one. So we don't know how to use our faculties. The greatest faculties that you have right now as a human being is, you have a vivid sense of memory. Everything that happened, you can remember as if it's alive right now. Yes? There is a repository here, there's an archive in your mind which can replay the whole video if you want. But this has become a problem. You started suffering the old movies. And there is a fantastic sense of imagination, so you already suffer a tomorrow which is yet to come. This is basically because we have not taught our children and the people in the world how to employ our faculties, how to use our memory, how to use our imagination, how to experience life right now, how to sharpen the experience now. Your whole life is happening between these three dimensions: memory, present experience and imagination. This is your life, isn't it? These are three dimensions. We call them trikala, 3 dimensions of time. All your experience of life is happening here. But if you lose distinction between what is past, what is present, what is future, then everything hurts. But not everybody terrible things have happened. Unfortunately, for a few people they have happened. But the rest of the people are simply suffering something, isn't it? Because it's fashionable to suffer. People think if they're suffering, they are very intellectual, they're very profound. No, it's just stupid because you're suffering something that doesn't exist. You're not suffering what's happening right now. You're suffering what happened yesterday and you're suffering something that may happen tomorrow already. So this madness has been encouraged simply because we never train people how to use their faculties. Do you agree with me that this human machine that you carry and I carry, this is the most sophisticated machine on the planet? Hello?
At least I think it is.
Have you read the user's manual? User's manual, have you read? No. When are you going to read it? On the last day?
Last day.
If you get a phone, if you buy a phone, should you read the user's manual in the first 3 days or after 3 years when you're discarding
To be
the
honest,
phone?
I never read it usually, but I get his point.
Earliest, isn't it? Within the first day you must read, then only you can use this phone well. The same goes for this. If you do not understand the nature of what this is, how will you put this to use? It is consuming you, your own intelligence is consuming you. You can call it stress, anxiety, pain, suffering, whatever. Essentially, your intelligence is turned against you, that's all the reality is. If your intelligence was working for you, taking instructions from you, you would keep yourself blissed out, wouldn't you? Hello? Your intelligence is turned against you. Why has your intelligence turned against you? That's what you need to look at, not about carrying these things that have happened which should not have happened as badges in our life. This may get a lot of women against me. If I was against you, I wouldn't be here. Yes?
Now let's talk about it. Before, I share what I think and have connected with or not understood of the video. Would love to hear your views on this topic of what Sadhguru has shared in the comments down below. If you've made it this far, would definitely appreciate you hitting the like button. It definitely helps with the algorithm for the videos and the channel. So this was definitely a very interesting video, which I'm grateful to have seen, because it's a question which I think has been talked about, and I can see a lot of practical examples of what he's been saying or what was said, especially the line of holding this suffering as a badge. You see, I always love comparing this into the triple layer cake analogy. If you've seen my videos, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, well, it really just comes down to the way I've broken down the different levels of awareness. And essentially the bottom layer is the deeper layer, or, let's say full consciousness. Prefacing here, I'm not saying I'm enlightened and I know what full consciousness is, but just, sharing this out of the relative terms. So the top layer with regards to all of these things is, especially when something difficult or challenging happens to you, or even very, just hard and just like suffering's put onto you to an extent, meaning our pain. Let's just call it pain, right? Because suffering is your choice. It might sound controversial, but suffering is actually your choice, but the pain is not your choice, right? Maybe it is inflicted from the outside. So when pain is put on you, the top layer of the cake I view as people who are basically very dismissive of people that have gone through the pain, basically very oblivious, people that ignore it, don't think it exists. A lot of these traumas or just abuse, mental health issues, for instance, who completely put it down and just say that doesn't exist. That's the top layer. Once people have evolved past this layer, it's the middle layer. And what is the middle layer? The middle layer is people that are fully open about it, fully acknowledge it, fully accept it, but at the same time, there's a level of ego in the sense that it's almost honored like a badge, and it's a pride. Celebration, as I've come to realize, is different than pride. Pride is of the ego. Pride is essentially you raising this false sense of self, which is the ego, and declaring that false sense of self as like a flag and something that you are just putting on other people's faces or shoving down their throats, for example. Maybe these are extreme points, but just trying to get my point across. And so these are people that overly talk about their problems, overly talk about the pains they've been through, and only talk about the pains they've been through. And it essentially becomes your whole identity. You see, I'm not trying to dismiss what you've been through, and I think Sadhguru is not doing that either. Not to dismiss what you've been through, but it's to acknowledge and accept it, but not to hold it like a badge of honor. Suffering, illness, these are things that need awareness, need celebration to an extent, but not pride. So that's the middle layer, where people are just talking about it all the time, and they also think it's a very good thing. In fact, it's almost like a trick your mind plays. Like, we should all be having illnesses, and we should all be having anxiety and stress and whatever. But just because it's normal doesn't mean that that's how we should be, right? You get the point there. The bottom layer is people that have accepted, acknowledged, overcome, but have also let go, or just have let go of these past pains and past traumas. Again, as he says in a beautiful way, it's not about forgetting, because if you forget it, then you're going to keep entering that toxic cycle of facing it again, going through it again. The key, as he says, this is a really, really important line. I want you to hopefully just connect with this. If you haven't connected with anything else in this video or what I've shared, that's okay. But this one line I would really encourage you to just ponder on, or really just sit with. And it's, you can either get wounded or wiser when something happens to you. You have two choices. Super simple. And that is what it means, or that's what I meant when I was talking about the suffering and how it is truly your choice. Because the pain, like I said earlier, you don't have control over what pain is inflicted on you, right? At least the, pain that's caused by someone else on you, or even just life. And life, as I've come to realize, and Eckhart Tolle beautifully talks about this, Life is here not to make you happy, but it's here to challenge you. And it's through these challenges that you grow and get stronger and you get wiser. Without the challenge, there's no growth. So challenge is vital. So whenever these tough things happen to you, and again, I really don't want to put down what you've gone through, and I want to really acknowledge, raise the awareness of these things. But it's important to realize that we don't need to just identify with this and make this our whole life and life story, really. We need to talk about it, but it shouldn't be the language of our talk. That's the point. So hopefully this little perspective was resonating or maybe clear. And if it wasn't, if you disagree with what I've said or what Sadhguru has shared, I don't care, because I want you to share openly about what you feel. This is a super important thing I want to emphasize, which is I really do value open expression. I might think you might be saying something stupid or dumb, but it doesn't matter. I think you have the right to share what you want to share. And so share what you think of what I've said or what Sadhguru has shared in the comments down below. If you have any other video reaction requests or other gurus or spiritual teachers or just any other videos, really, because wisdom does cover everything, right? It's all of life. So you can also comment that down below. And with that, make a great day, take it joyfully, and stay conscious. Ecstasy.